All right, peace, and we are live.
All right, Hotel family, peace and greetings. My name is Aundar. I'm the co-founder of Melaneyes Media. We're an independent film company based out of San Antonio, Texas. And of course, this is our Tuesday morning Black conversation. And we're always excited to have the family and community come together just to have these conversations about subjects, topics that impact us as Black people, and kind of built upon the history and the sharing of our past and understanding of where we are today and looking at our future. So with that said, I'm going to pass it over to my brother because he's going to guide us through our conversation this morning. We're just going to enjoy this conversation and share information. Hotep, my brother.
Peace, Aundar. Peace and greetings, family. Thank you all for joining us today. All that are joining us live, we appreciate your time this morning. Once again, Tuesday morning conversations with Melaneyes Media. We appreciate you continuing to support us. You can continue to support us by subscribing to our YouTube channel. We host these Tuesday morning conversations at 10 a.m. Central Time. And if you'd like to go back and see prior episodes, they are available on our YouTube channel. And so today's topic of discussion is Black men and women. So last week we focused on Black men. This week we're going to look at us as a group, as a unity, as a union, Black men and Black women. And so what I'm going to do really quickly, transition to a slide just so we can have a visual ready. So let me do that. Can you see that, Aundar?
Yes, sir. Sir, I see it, my brother.
Excellent. And so family, I'm going to read this statement that we found online. And it says, Black men and women, we are unstoppable. A motivated Black man and Black woman are unstoppable. Throughout history, we have shown that together we can accomplish great things. We have to remember this. Despite what many might have you think, there are a great number of Black men and women who are living great, successful lives together. Those are the examples we need to look at. And this comes from Justin Stinnett, May 17th of this year. And this was via Medium, which I thought and found was a very insightful blog, if you ever get a chance to read it in its entirety. But just coming from this perspective, Baba Aundar, especially since we continue to look at history as our platform, highlights, what do you think when you see this statement?
Well, first of all, brother, I agree with it 1000%. That is very true, that we are unstoppable when we come together as Black men and Black women. And of course, historically, it speaks to the fact that Black men and women are the very foundation of humanity and civilization. So first of all, it was our union that brought us all into existence in the first place and laid down the foundation for what we know as great nations, first establishing the family and then, of course, communities and then evolving into nations. But the idea was our unity that made that possible. Because, as Black men and Black women, we balance each other. We give support to each other in the sense of complementing each other. And I think this being the foundation, and I make this point, brother, is that, when I had a chance to, of course, visit Egypt, Kemet, one thing I saw that was very much part of that great nation at that time, and I'm talking about ancient Kemet, with the pyramids and the temples and so forth, but was the evidence that Black men and women worked together. They were in unity, because when you look at some of the colossus, the great monuments, you see Black men and women standing together, sitting together. And of course, in that surrounding, they recognized that even within the fact that they had the goddesses, it wasn't just a god, but it was a goddess, So you had someone like Goddess Ma'at, Goddess Aset. So you elevated the woman and man together. So it wasn't a division. So in the very foundation, you had people like Heru and Aset working together, well, as Sar and Set working together as men and women. But the example was there. And I think, just what it's saying right here, brother, is the fact that as Black men and women, we have always, I think, in many understood the importance of us complementing each other, working together, having balance, and seeing that when we come together, truly we are builders of great nations, but it depends on our great unity. And I think, and I know we'll go more into this conversation, but it's that struggle of always trying to maintain, and of course, in this kind of environment we're living in today, trying to always maintain and in many ways restore that understanding of us as Black men and women and how we complement each other.
Indeed. When you were speaking, one of the things that popped into my mind from a standpoint of history is, well, first off, I really appreciate what you said as far as mothers and fathers of civilization. Nobody would be here on the planet had Black men and Black women not come together, because the first law of nature we know is self-preservation, which means the ensuring that the species survives.
Yes.
The other thing that you said that I thought was very poignant was just talking about how we complement one another. And I think as a young man, I don't know if I understood that as well. The feminine presence is so very necessary for a masculine, for men. Just like the presence of masculine energy is very important for women. When we talk about the developmental ages, it's important. When we talk about those adolescent ages, that's important. And as we speak about adulthood, it's also important. And I think right now in society, there is a focus on divisions. And I don't think it's just men and women. I think the young and the old, differences of opinions. I think people are really focusing on divisions. And this was mentioned in the Willie Lynch paper. And I think that we have to make sure that as a people, that we don't get caught up in that, because some of this really is Western society, which we know doesn't necessarily benefit us as a people. The Western standards does not favor Black people. It does not coincide with what traditionally we have benefited from. And so with that being said, I think if we really start to understand how we complement one another and how necessary we are to one another, then some of the smaller things can be set aside, because ultimately there's no division, because ultimately we are one as a people. And men and women, we are, especially the Black family, I mean, we are the backbone of all humanity.
Yes. It's interesting because I think when you just mentioned the idea of preservation, I think that is one of the key things for us to understand, is that it is our unity, our togetherness that has preserved us from the very beginning, but also through this very challenging period in our history when we talking about our experience here in America coming through the enslavement period. It was our unity that preserved us, in the spite of the fact that it was a culture, I'm talking about Western culture, of division and created among Black men and women. And I think, what you raise up is the fact that we're living in a very anti-unity society, because there's an element, it's almost like a philosophy and practice of division. You mentioned the young and the old, men and women, and so forth. It just seems to be a practice of an idea that says we all are against each other. We all are in opposition to each other. And one of us has to be in a superior position while others have to be in an inferior position, which ultimately going to create a division if you look at life that way, because no one wants to be oppressed in an inferior position. So in this society, that's the way it's kind of structured. Men are supposed to be superior to women. Of course, white is supposed to be superior to Black, and it creates a division. But for us as Black men and women, sometimes the things that has happened is that we have bought into other people's ideas and practices, and we have created this imbalance within us in our relationship. And in our struggle, in many ways, is to first discard that idea, get away from that idea of thinking that we have to be superior or in a position of power over each other, and understand it's our power together that gives us true power as Black men and women, and has, again, ultimately been our unity, which has preserved us through the most difficult times in history. And of course, in the great times of history, it has been our unity that has propelled us. But understanding that we cannot permit ourselves to be pulled into somebody else's ideas and practices, we have to reestablish our own ideas and practices as Black men and women, understanding, again, that we complement each other.
I think ultimately we want to see each other together.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's why you have people be so invested into celebrity relationships, whether it be Will and Jada, whether it be Beyonce and Jay-Z, people's perception of a couple, of a Black couple, it's always formed in a way that we ultimately do want to see each other together, I think. I want to speak to some, go ahead, bro.
No, when you just said the names there, I just thought of just quickly, just the history, because I think history tells us that also. You know, when you think of Marcus Garvey, you have to remember his wife, Amy Garvey. You think of Brother Malcolm, you have to think of, you know, his wife, Betty Shabazz. If you think of Dr. King, you have to think of Miss Coretta Scott. But I'm saying you have to understand that many times the reason that these men who are known in history were able to stand strong is because they had a complementary partner with them, this Black woman who many times was not necessarily talked about in history, but had a tremendous impact on history. But I just wanted to point that out as you were saying some of the names of some of the more current people.
Indeed. No, that's a great point. And I think one thing I was going to speak to that you had kind of mentioned a little bit was the enslavement period. And I want to speak to that because I think that there's a key in there. There was a definite effort to make sure that men and women weren't able to, Black men and women weren't able to perform their natural roles. The Black man was not allowed to protect and to be able to provide for his family in his natural sense because the enslaver was the interceder. Black women were not allowed to nurture and raise up their children in a way that was natural to them because of what the enslavement limited them in doing. And so when you can't protect your woman and you can't really even have your own union, she doesn't fully even get a chance to have the respect for you. Men can't really be able to fend for their families like they wanted to, because anyone at any time could be sold off at any particular point in time.
Yes.
And I think if we understand that, then it's easy to combat that outside of the enslavement period, because some of those remnants have remained. And I think if we understand those things, that we can go back and fix or heal those pains and those problems. I think another thing too that we have to really understand is that there is a monetary gain when there's division, because for Western society specifically, I mean, it is money in it. If you create these divisions and these little encapsulated groups, you can make money from it. And it does, and it also lends to, once again, us not being together makes the outside forces stronger. But what I wanted to specifically speak to, because I know one thing we did last week, we spoke about manhood, and we talked about and really gave some definition to men and women, or at least to men. What I wanted to do is just talk about the complement. We speak about it, but to be specific, you know, one thing that I've learned, men and women complement each other through character, through physical things. So when we look at it, a woman is a nurturer. She provides solace. A man is more dealing with logic, more reason, sometimes more directed to try to problem solve. And I think when we put those together,
Yes.
it's a perfect complement.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about a woman may not be physically as strong as a man, that's why her lower body may be stronger. She deals with ability to sustain. That goes back to childbearing and things of that nature. We look at a man has more upper body strength that deals with lifting and things of that nature. So he may have more physical strength, but she has more long lasting stamina. Women are known for stamina. That's one of the reasons why they tend to live longer, amongst other things. But once again, if we put those together, then it's a perfect union.
Yeah.
So just some things I was thinking about.
No, I think, and that's an excellent point, brother, because I think highlighting those things can help us to better understand why it's necessary and so important that we do come together and complement each other. Because, you know, as men and women, we have our strengths, and we have those strengths complement each other. You know, you just mentioned the idea of men maybe being supposed to be more reasonable, logical, women being more, they say, emotional or spirited, but together we complement each other. You know, and the thing, it's two things I thought about as you were saying that. One is that, and we all have these capabilities, because a woman can go out and provide, a woman can protect, man, you know, can definitely be a nurturer. So we can do these things, but what is our strength and what is best suited for us, you know, based upon the environment we're in. And I think what history has shown is that when we identified our roles and we really strengthened and showed, and I guess maintain our strength in those roles, then we complemented each other. True enough that we're living in a society that sometimes has redefined roles of men and women. And what I think is that we don't necessarily fit the definition, because it don't even work for the society and the people that, you know, go along with these roles. Ultimately, again, we have to get back to understanding our strengths as men and women and how coming together truly we benefit from each other, complement each other. You know, I think it's many times, brother, as men, we don't even know ourselves until we're in a relationship with a woman. And likewise, I don't think a woman really knows herself until she's in a relationship with a man, because it's something about us coming together, which is an act of attraction, because we're attracted to each other, is that we come to know ourselves, you know, knowing our real strength, knowing how patient we can be, how understanding we can be, how kind and loving we can be. I think we really don't know that until we are in relationship with, as men, with a woman, or a woman with a man. That's when we really come to know, hey, you know, hey, I gotta build this, I gotta strengthen this, but this is my strength and this is what I bring to the table, you know. And I know many times we have, in our conversation, you have talked about the man being definitely a protector. I mean, that's just natural. Our build and structure physically, you know, enables us to be able to do that, or permits us to do that. But I think the fact is also the woman being a nurturer, because at that very beginning of life form, you know, giving birth to a child, she is the one that normally holds the child, provides that nurturing, feeds the child, and is that child's first, many ways, teacher, doctor, healer, and the nurturer for that child. So we understand that there's a certain role that we play in society. And at that time, while that woman is doing that, we should be in a setting where we are providing and protecting, so that woman can do what she does best. So likewise, I'm just saying, brother, you know, what you're raising up and what we're talking about is, I think, can be very much understood, because it's naturally it's natural for us as men and women. And I think it's important that we understand that.
Indeed. One thing, when you were speaking, one thing I was thinking about, it all boils down to strengths. However, it also boils down to choice. Because one thing I was taught early on, and a brother shared this with me, said, what's between a man and a woman is between that man and that woman. And ultimately, what I think I learned from that is that you have to make your own path, your own agreements, and not let them be dictated towards you. So once again, kind of piggybacking on what you just said, we have natural abilities that suit us both. However, if we choose to do something different, that's okay too. It just has to be an agreement. And I think that's sometimes what we have to also understand. We make our own interjudgments as a couple or as a group or as a unit, as a union, to what we think is best fit for us, that works for us. So, and I really want to point this out too, because I feel like lately, a lot of what I see in here revolves around income and money. And I think that's somewhat sad. However, it's a reality because we live in a capitalistic society. One thing I noticed, and we often talk about, and I know we speak about this in one of the presentations, about how Black women specifically at this point in history are elevating with education, starting businesses at record rates, moving up the corporate ladder at record rates. And I think that's beautiful. And I think that that can be something to be learned from. But if that's the case, one thing that I don't think is often mentioned, I personally see more men that are focused on family, that are more in tune with wanting to provide for their children because their fathers might not have been in their lives. And so if we look at that, that can be a union or a complement that might be different than what we may have pictured in the past, but could work for us more now. And so if the sisters are getting a high level education and reaching certain goals in this society that can benefit us economically, then maybe the men can be more in tune with what's positive and productive for us culturally, because we can never lose the soul of who we are, and somebody got to maintain that part of who we are. And so I've just been thinking more about that, because ultimately together we win, but it's about finding a complement. You don't want to find someone that's doing exactly what you're doing. That's really not complement. That causes headbutting. If you find somebody that has a strength that you may not be as powerful in or not as good at, that's really who your partner should be. That's really what you look for in a partner, because once again, it's a partnership. If we think about the symbol of yin and yang, it's a balance that's required. There is a true complement and coming together and fitting together and matching. So I just wanted to bring that up too.
No, and again, brother, I think, that's a really important point for us to understand, is because as men, again, as society we live in, it seems to have put emphasis on the different roles, in which we're able to engage in successfully. I mean, you just highlighted the fact that the number of sisters with the higher education and employment in corporate America, which of course, I think sometimes is by design, but nevertheless, we live in this kind of society where that may be the requirement for our, overall success as a family. And I think it speaks to us understanding the elements that are trying to maybe manipulate our roles. But what you said is key, is understanding and us choosing and defining what our roles will be, and then emphasizing, because as men, we might not be able to get necessarily as much into corporate America because they're not opening the doors for us, because right now they're about women, and mostly white women, but black women. But the idea is that if we also understand that, okay, if my woman is going into corporate America, I want to, take a role within, be more active within the family, and also be a producer, because, it may create now complementary complementing each other, it may produce an opportunity for us as men to be more of a producer within the community, building a business or building something that also lays a foundation for our future. So we have to understand sometimes that what is today don't necessarily have to be tomorrow. We can really understand that, look here, eventually it's going to be more of a restoring of what we want as a people, as men and women. And it's going to be a day and a time where, you know, maybe we can get back to more of that understanding of complementing each other in our own setting, where our women don't necessarily have to go into corporate America, but we'll have a foundation for as a family business or a community enterprise that could sustain us all without even having to go into another foreign setting. But I think it comes back to us appreciating each other, respecting each other, loving each other, understanding the conditions of today, but understanding that we have a brighter future ahead if we're on the same page and we understand our strengths that we bring to the table. And it's not just the monetary strength. And I think that's the point you was also making. It's not just about the money. It's about the fact that we bring thoughts and ideas, we bring energy, we bring power, we bring creativity to each other, and then we bring productivity. We come together to produce. So I think all those things are ways that we can definitely, again, complement each other.
Indeed. Really quickly, Aundar, I wanted to ask you this. I know we're just talking about male and female, but we haven't really touched much upon relationships. As a married man, as somebody who has a partner, give me a couple points that you've learned from your position with your partner that you may not have known earlier in life that you would help somebody else with?
Well, I would say a couple of things, but one of the top things, brother, is just us being on the same page and defining us as a people. First, I've been very fortunate, you know, to have someone that I think is definitely on the same page and we complement each other. Because one is that we're both committed to the betterment of us as Black people and the betterment of humanity. I think with that understanding, then we have a knowledge of ourselves, a knowledge of each other, because when we talk, we have conversation around what is important, not only to our immediate family, but what's important to us as a Black family. And I think, you know, in my early, you know, life, that was not my focus. You know, it might have been my focus, might have been more of on a physical look or just something else that was more a material thing relationship. But now I think it's more of a mental and a spiritual relationship. And I would say that one of the things that as Black men and women, that has definitely impacted my life, and I think will impact all of us, is that first we get knowledge of ourselves as Black men and women, and we find those who are of like mind and willing, you know, and want to create something, not just for our immediate family, but for a greater society, a greater family. But it begins with strengthening knowledge of self. And then just, of course, I think being complementary of each other. And I use that quite often because I say that, but to say that I understand my wife's strengths and I understand my strengths. And I think we complement each other in regard to recognizing that we both bring something to the table that is of great value, you know. And I think, again, you know, having grown in age and maybe better understanding, I can see that a lot clearer nowadays. But the fact is that it's that self-knowledge, understanding how we complement each other and understanding that together, we are definitely are winning.
Indeed. Those are good answers, Aundar. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I think
well, I know the time goes quick. Let me just say one last thing that I really wanted to, you know, in relationships in general, once again, it's a balance that's necessary, it's a complement that's necessary. I think that what men and women both have to understand is how much work a relationship takes.
Mm.
And if you're not going to work at it, if you're not going to be willing to deal with the ebbs and flows, the peaks and the valleys, it's not going to work. If the first challenges you face, you're ready to dismantle the union,
Mm.
it's not going to work. And I don't know sometimes, and I don't want to keep saying today's society, because I think these are challenges we always have and will face. However, it is a lot of work. We can't be scared to work, and you can't be scared to get in the trenches with your partner. A person that you're with may have issues that you personally don't have, and you still have to be willing to help and assist them. You also have to be willing to serve another person. I don't care who you are. You're not going to be in a relationship if you can't be in service to the other person at some point for some time. And I think that sometimes is difficult because, once again, we live in a society that is sometimes self-centered and looks at the individual qualities of people as individuals and not the collective.
Yes.
But if you are not willing to serve, you're not going to be in a relationship for very long, and the union is not going to hold fast. And when I say union, I'm not even necessarily saying it got to be marriage, because at one point that wasn't even allowed for us. I don't think that solidifies a union. I don't think that legitimizes a union. But whatever you choose, the parameters that you choose for you and your significant partner or person that you're with, there has to be service. It has to be willing to work through problems.
No problem, no doubt. Now, that's wise, brother, because we're going to face some challenges.
Ain't no doubt about it.
You know, we try to love each other and they throwing rocks, and sometimes we picking up rocks.
True indeed.
But it's all good, brother, because it's all for the, ultimate for the good for us as a people.
Yeah.
Is that we stay in the union and we stay together and work out any challenges that we may have.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it, brother.
Indeed. And so, family, once again, we appreciate y'all sticking with us. Once again, if you would like to see some of the prior episodes of these conversations, please check in with our YouTube channel. We would subscribe. We would encourage you to subscribe to our channel, like and share this video. And until we meet again, we hope that you all have a positive and a productive day. Peace.
What's up, family? Peace and blessings.